Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Anthony Broome. We are back in the state of Michigan after a short trip to Indianapolis. Had some good steak at Prime 47 last night, but that was pretty much the highlight after Michigan blows a 17-point second-half lead to Indiana. Brutal stretch, obviously. I feel like everybody pretty much knows what happened at this point. We'll talk a little bit about it, but we're going to talk more so about the situation that Michigan's now in, kind of waiting until Sunday for the selection show, trying to see what seed they could potentially be if they're going to have to play in the first four in Dayton. All of that. There's other stuff going on around the bubble as well, which obviously is going to factor into where Michigan ends up. But Anthony, I guess your big, thought coming out of that Indiana game for Michigan. I mean, played a great first half, played a great first really 27 minutes of that game, and then just completely fell apart, almost literally and figuratively. I mean, Devontae Jones was falling down. Maybe it was hurt at some point in the early second half. Hunter Dickinson was hitting the deck. It just looked like different guys, a different team down the stretch, completely crumbled. And Rick Pizzo said, I guess, on the broadcast that Michigan just looked blank-faced in those timeouts where they were totally fazed by the Indiana run, the Indiana crowd that was – I'd say close to 10,000 of them there, 8 maybe, 9. Raucous environment, but your thought out of that game?
I've never seen anything like it, Clayton. Especially, it feels like this year with this Michigan team, we've seen them win every type of game you can win. They've won some rock fights. They've won some shootouts. We've seen them lose just about every type of game you can lose as well. When you have a slightly above 500 record, that's kind of what there's never been a better case to me, and I wrote about this yesterday after the game. There's never been a more clear case of you are what your record says you are than this current team. 17-14. A few more nights they've been better than normal, which is why they're a couple games over. But I've never seen a team blow a 17-point lead and have it be gone in a 5-minute stretch, and then have to fight to come back. I think they were down. I think they were down set by as much as 7 down the stretch. Does that sound right to you? I mean, it was a 31-9 run for Indiana to end this game. Michigan led 60-43 with about 12 minutes left. I've never seen anything like it. And they did have no answers. You could see it. Ballas was courtside, so he could see stuff from down there a little differently. I was kind of a little bit more up in a media overflow section. You could see during the timeouts. I mean, the body language was terrible, which is so weird because I was in the tunnel before the game, and the team was as loose and as fired up as I've seen them all year. They certainly came out and played that way. It was one of the best, in that 27 minutes where they were in complete control was some of the best basketball they played on both ends of the floor all year. So for things to play out like that, it's hurtful. And something I said on the Huge Show yesterday was, when the most disappointing thing of it all is that you were done in Indianapolis less than 24 hours after you arrived there, and you no longer control your own destiny the rest of this weekend. I mean, it really did seem like find a way to win that game yesterday, and you're in. But as has been the case throughout the entire year, man, it's close. It's been close, but no cigar. I mean, even late in the game when Michigan had to charge back, they got it down to 2 with, what was it, maybe 10, 15 seconds left. That's what the deficit was. And they throw a pass, an errant pass goes out of bounds, and you wind up losing that basketball game. It was already lost, but you throw away your chance to win it. So it's disappointing. I mean, everyone from Juwan Howard, it was his first game. The storyline was going to be that it was Juwan Howard's first game back, and it was kind of a homecoming is not the right word, but a reestablishing of expectations and getting ready for the postseason and moving forward from that situation a few weeks ago. And this is unrelated, but, now the storyline is, again, it goes back to just being frustrated with the missed opportunities throughout the year. I mean, Clayton, all they've had to do in the last month, because they haven't won consecutive games since February 8th and February 10th, somewhere along the line in the last month, all they had to do is win one more basketball game somewhere. And we're not even really talking about the NCAA tournament bubble today. I still think they're in. They're not comfortably in. I'd say they're in by the skin of their teeth, but now it's, if there's chaos the rest of this weekend, which we've already seen it early Friday with Indiana winning, Texas A&M beating Auburn, it hasn't affected Michigan's standing yet, but as these things start to snowball, there's still 2.5 days of basketball left before Selection Sunday, and not being in control of your own destiny after being very much in control of your own destiny, being up 17 in that game is as disappointing as I've been in this team all year.
Yeah, and the crazy part about a collapse like that is that you had to play so well to get a 17-point lead. To blow a 17-point lead is one thing, but for it to be that much of a 180 because you were up 13 at halftime, you looked good. Now, maybe it was a little deceiving because Xavier Johnson was in foul trouble and Trace Jackson-Davis missed a couple easy ones around the rim. That could have made it tighter because those two were lethal in the second half for Indiana, but the score was what it was. You're always nervous if you're the team or, probably more so a coach or a fan when your team has a big lead like that, but you never really see that happen. In this case, though, I guess that's why people are nervous in those cases, for the slim chance that something like this happens. Unbelievable. As you said, I'd never seen anything like it either. It was stunning. And the Indiana fans just, went from silent, a bunch of people in red sitting there to everybody standing up in one of the more raucous environments. And that played a huge factor. Talking about it today with other people, like Michigan probably would have won that game if it wasn't like that in terms of that environment, but they knew it was going to be a pro-Indiana crowd coming in, and that's exactly what it was. And they falter down the stretch. As you mentioned, 2 days in a row now for Indiana. They have the other team down one possession with 11 seconds left, throw it out of bounds to turn it over, and they win 2 games. So they beat Illinois early this afternoon. As you mentioned, Texas A&M takes down the 1 seed in the SEC tournament, Auburn. They are, further away, still on the wrong side of the bubble when you look at it. But let's talk about Joe Lunardi's update right after those afternoon games. He still has Michigan in the last 4 byes, and he doesn't have Indiana moving off of that last 4 in, so they would still be in Dayton at this point. The problem is Indiana has another game tomorrow. They'll take on the winner of Iowa and Rutgers. We're recording that as that game is tipping off here today. And then the other problem is there's a lot of teams still playing here, a lot of teams still alive that are on the bubble, including Texas A&M, or let's say a team goes and wins a conference tournament this weekend and steals an automatic bid. That would obviously knock Michigan down, but as of right now, they'd have to be knocked down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots to even be off of there right now, or 6 spots to be off of even the first 4. So you still should feel pretty good. And the term that Iman Brennan, who does bracket work for The Athletic, used on how Michigan should feel is reasonably confident. And I thought that was pretty good. And that's all you can feel, because as Juwan Howard said yesterday, he is going to be praying that his team makes it in, because guess what? They're back in Ann Arbor right now, and they're not playing after losing to Indiana. And it would have been one thing to just lose that game to a desperate team, but to lose it in the way they did makes it sting even more. Any thoughts on, I guess, the whole bubble here, what to watch for? You did a great rooting guide this morning, and then they go 0 for 2 on the first 2 games. But there's some other games to watch around the country today, and then obviously tomorrow and throughout the weekend as well.
Yeah, full day of basketball. Love this time of year, regardless of how Michigan's doing. I've always had us. This is Christmas for guys like us. It's just nonstop wall-to-wall action over the next, really 3 to 4 weeks here. So excited for that. The thing about the bubble is that, I know there are bracketologists that have, their algorithms, their criteria, whatever it is. It's important to note that, for example, Iman Brennan, his word is not the gospel truth. Joe Lunardi, his word is not the gospel truth. Jerry Palm, who has Michigan out as of right now, of CBS, not the gospel truth. So what matters most is a bunch of people are going to sit down in a room, and these conversations are already ongoing about what their body of work looks like. Now, Michigan's resume, I think it's it's good enough. The win against San Diego State, I think has aged very well. They have some, I hate the term quality loss, because I don't believe in a quality loss, but for resume purposes, losing to teams like Arizona and North Carolina, those have aged well. The ones that haven't aged well and the ones that are hurting you right now are Minnesota and UCF. Again, I talked about somewhere along the line this season, there was one more game you needed to win somewhere, and they weren't able to do it, and they'll be kicking themselves for that. Especially like I said, I would side with Eamon Brennan that Michigan should be relatively confident. I don't know if confidence is the right word. I would say relatively sure of themselves that they've done enough to get in, but I need to word this carefully, because of course, like they could get hot, anyone could get hot and go on a run through the NCAA tournament now. But the more and more so you didn't have a regular season that went well, so you turn the page to the Big Ten tournament, and that's there's a lot of pride in that. Michigan's won this thing before, and it could be something that does propel you to a run, later in the year. Short of this team getting to a Final Four and beyond, winning a national championship, I don't really know if there's anything that can come out of this year. At this point, maybe it's just making the second weekend of the tournament. I don't know if there's anything they can do to really feel good about where they're at right now. So that's it's been disappointing, but it's March. I think they're going to get in. At worst, I think they'll be in Dayton, and you go from there.
So let me ask you this about what you just said there. Like, is that a different feeling, or would you have put that sentence together 24 hours ago, or I guess 27 hours ago before the Michigan-Indiana game tipped off? Or is this because of that blown second half lead?
I think it's because of the blown lead. There are dogs here barking. Sorry. It is
All
what
good.
it is. I think it is because of the blown second half lead. I think if they won that game on Thursday, then they're in, and they're not looking at the bubble stuff right now. And I still think they're in, but it's just, as has been the deal with this team throughout the year, they cannot get out of their own way and make it easier on themselves. And that to me is evidenced by, like I said, the 500 record down the stretch, the last month of the year. I get the Big Ten's a tough quality conference every year, but you just got to win one game somewhere. And again, all of that is set aside when you get to a game like yesterday. Like it doesn't matter what you did before that. You got to take care of the challenge that's in front of you. And when push came to shove, and Indiana did push and did shove and made its push to get back in that game, this team folded like a house of cards, and that's disappointing. But we'll see what happens from here.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, and it was a topic I wanted to hit on as well that you already have, is, does this weekend, or, you can't even call it the weekend because they got to Thursday, right? But change anything for what I think they can do in the NCAA tournament if they get there. And I think we both agree that they probably will. Again, it's out of their hands at this point. It's in the committee's hands. It's in other teams' hands that are still playing this weekend in their conference tournaments. Like, I wrote coming in that I don't think anything happens this weekend short of Michigan winning the Big Ten tournament that makes me think that they're either going to go on a run in the Big Dance or they're going to get an early exit. Like, I think early exit's the most likely thing anyway because they're going to be an underdog in that first game no matter what. And that's the way it goes when you're going to be a double-digit seed. But so it's interesting. Like, I don't want to overreact too much to what happened in that second half and not to downplay how terrible it was, because it was terrible. But there's something about, as Anthony just texted me that he's going to let a dog out real quick, so I'm going to be talking to nobody. But, like, there's something about this second half that I think everyone is freaking out about, as Anthony has returned. And they should be freaking out about what happened and because Michigan lost. But this is this team. They've done this stuff, not to that degree, but all season long. They've gone 10 games in a row of win-loss, win-loss. So I'm not sure that this has a ton of impact on what they can do. And another, devil's advocate type of thing is that Juwan Howard came back just a couple days before that. They did look fired up to me as well, Anthony. Juwan walks in, chorus of boos from the Indiana faithful, some cheering from the outnumbered Michigan faithful, and they were fired up. He was giving them big hugs. They were ready to go. But that guy had been only with them for a couple days at that point. Maybe another week, including some rest, will do them good. Again, they would rather be playing this weekend, but trying to look at what positives could come out of it. What is the impact of this on next week? we don't know. And even if they lose, we don't know that it was because of the Indiana second half. And if they win, we don't know it was because they were motivated. This time of year, you never know. But things just kind of play out how they play out. And it's going to be fascinating, I think, for this team to see where they end up and what they can do next weekend, because there's still some talent here. And, you know, if they could salvage something, I agree with you that maybe that second weekend is kind of the benchmark of whether or not this thing was a quote-unquote success. Coming into the year, that was not the expectation, but you have to recalibrate some expectations at different times in sports. That's a common thing. And they weren't the ones that picked themselves, top 5 preseason, although I'm sure they were confident in themselves. But it's just kind of the way it has gone. And, I feel like this team has kind of been like this for a while now. So as far as the Big Ten tournament going forward, we, talked about this over dinner last night. We also got to watch a little bit of Iowa and what they did, that wreckage of Northwestern winning 112-76, crushing the Big Ten tournament scoring record by 15 points, I believe it is. Yeah, it was 97 before. It's the biggest win margin in Big Ten history, Big Ten tournament history. Like, that team is playing as good as anybody. They outplayed Illinois last Sunday in that loss. They missed 12 free throws, I think 10 of them in the second half. So you can still argue that Iowa's playing as good as anybody in the country. They're starting to play defense now, which is crazy for a Fran McCaffrey team in March. I don't want to get ahead of myself because they could very well lose to Rutgers like they did at the RAC earlier on this season as we're speaking right now and as this podcast is coming out. But I think Purdue's still going to win that Big Ten tournament. I had Iowa in the championship game before this, but now that Illinois is knocked out, I feel pretty good about that. I guess them or Rutgers. Your thoughts on the rest of the Big Ten tournament and how this thing is going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see. It's funny talking about how the rooting guide is already 0 for. I think it's 0 for 2 or close to 0 for 3. I did a tournament preview where I picked all the games and did a little, not a bracket, but I picked all the games and got us to Sunday. I started 0-3 there too. So it's almost like anything I say is like cursed this week. So sorry if you should just fade me.
Just take a couple days off or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing going on right now. It's good for downtime. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, when we get to Saturday, I want to see Keegan Murray and Johnny Davis and Jaden Ivey all playing against each other for the shot to get to Sunday, because I mean those guys. I mean, Ivey's probably a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Those other 2 guys I've seen them in the top 10 in mocks. I think this time of year, especially when the team that we follow, the team that we cover isn't playing, I look to storylines and I look to players, and there's a lot of talent left in this tournament still. So if I were a betting man. And this, I'm not just saying this because Ballas and I stayed in Iowa's hotel. Iowa is playing the best out of anyone in this conference right now. I know they ran up a couple weeks ago. I have to put my foot in my mouth for this now. I said that Iowa wasn't very good and just kind of ran up its efficiency margins against bad teams. Well, they've won 6 of their last 7 now. And I think math is hard. 9 of their last 11 heading into Friday's game. So, and who knows? By the time this comes out, it'll probably be dated already. But I just say, I feel really good about what Iowa's brought into this tournament. Excited to see what happens the rest of the way. I mean, this is just the most bountiful, wonderful time of the year for guys like us. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's been kind of crazy so far. Penn State. How about Penn State knocking off Ohio State? That was again. It was. Michigan State tried to blow a lead in that Thursday night game, similar to its in-state rival, but was able to.
It would have been the biggest comeback in Big Ten tournament history. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Izzo, you got to see the smoke come out of his ears after the game because his team couldn't break a press. Yeah, there's still plenty of storylines there, and if you're a basketball fan, Michigan fans will be sour, but Michigan fans also are smart people and like watching good basketball. And the team that they have watched hasn't played consistent good basketball. So to have the chance to watch that the rest of the weekend, I think is a welcome opportunity, and we'll see what happens from there. But if I were a betting man, something about Iowa right now, and like I said, I could easily have my foot in my mouth 2 hours from now. But that's why this time of the year is special. You just never know what's around the corner.
Exactly. It's so unpredictable. I will say this, though. I feel good about my Purdue pick because of that Penn State upset over Ohio State. And, they may walk into Saturday after playing a tired Penn State team tonight. And that'll be interesting to see it play out. I agree. Some individual talent that could be in those semifinal games. I really hope Johnny Davis, for some obvious reasons, is playing on Saturday as well. As they take on Michigan State tonight. But and I think most people listening to this are probably hoping for that as well. But should be a good rest of the tournament. Obviously, for our sake, I mean, we're back. I was planning on, and I know you were at Dallas. We were all planning on being there, for the weekend, and we're back. But that takes us to spring football, which we're going to talk about real quick in a second. We got to talk to Jim Harbaugh earlier. Some players spoke later on this week. Harbaugh was on Tuesday, players on Thursday. Before we do that, though, let's talk about Manscaped, our great sponsor. March Madness is here. As you said, it's the best time of the year. Not everyone can have a perfect bracket, but you can have a perfect set of balls this tournament season with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their ultra-premium collection to give you the total championship hygiene routine. After sweating out the games, make sure you lather up head to toe with this all-in-one skin and hair kit to have your body and balls smelling Final Four fresh. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code 20GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. This is a Cinderella story you're not going to want to miss. They just sent us the Ultra Premium Collection in the mail, and it is fantastic. Anthony, Manscaped, a great partner, a great sponsor, a great product.
Yeah, if there's a silver lining to us returning from Indianapolis early, it's that I'm pretty sure when we get home, or when we got home, that there was a box waiting for us on the doorstep, so to speak. So love Manscaped. I brought the little travel bag with me that they sent before down to Indianapolis. Always put all my stuff in there. It's filled to the brim with the great products that they send us. So again, we don't endorse or sponsor anything that we don't stand by. And for what my money's worth, I think it's one of, if not the best thing that I have in terms of the hygiene arsenal. So happy to our friends from Manscaped continue to support us, support the Wolverine. And, as long as they're going to keep giving us good stuff, or we're going to keep raving about it. So you guys should hop on board as well.
Absolutely. So 20GOBLUE is the promo code there, 20GOBLUE at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. Anthony, let's talk quick spring football. Obviously, the biggest storyline that comes out of this week. There were rumors flying around, J.J. McCarthy, shoulder injury, potential torn labrum or a labrum injury. Not exactly sure what it is. Details not out, but that's kind of the guess at this point. And you have Jim Harbaugh saying he has elected to not get surgery after getting a few opinions from some doctors, some of them in the NFL. He is going to just go the rehab route. So he's taking reps in spring practice, but not throwing. So J.J. McCarthy, staying sharp, staying engaged, staying with the team, but won't be able to throw this spring. Jim Harbaugh did not give a timetable on when McCarthy could potentially be back full go, assuming that's going to be after the spring, or, we at least will not see him in the spring game, even if he starts to throw a little bit before then, because there is still, 3 weeks until that spring game. But unfortunate, I think, for everybody, because we wanted to hear how this battle was going to be going. And, we're not really going to get that. I know it's going to ramp up in the summer, but it's more quiet at that point. And then fall camp will come around, and then we'll see who starts the opener. And obviously we'll go from there. But I'm writing about this quarterback battle for our magazine, which is coming out next week. Go to the WolverineOnDemand.com, another plug. But go and get that. And, man, thinking about it, it's like Cade McNamara right now has a great opportunity this spring. And I know he surely wishes J.J. McCarthy was healthy, but this is a situation, and he has a great opportunity to prove himself in practice, continue to become a leader on this team, and emerge as even more of a leader, and then impress the general public, the coaching staff, his teammates during the spring game, well, J.J. McCarthy is still going to have a shot when he's fully healthy. But certainly this favors Cade McNamara. It's unfortunate for Michigan because you wanted your full strength and just see who battles and wins this thing out. But what'd you take from, Harbaugh talking about that? And Cade McNamara, by the way, asked on Thursday night about how he views this competition. And he said, well, I feel like I'm a Big Ten championship winning quarterback, so that's how I view it. And it's on. It's on at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's ever much that we can typically glean from what Harbaugh says on a situation, because even the walk-on quarterbacks are doing great, in his eyes, and they shouldn't be ruled out either. But I think the biggest, I hesitate to call it a disappointment, but this quarterback battle is the storyline of the offseason for them, and the fact that JJ will miss. I mean, he elected not to get surgery, so he's still with the team. He's still practicing, just not throwing. I believe the term from Jim Harbaugh was they're going to, quote unquote, work the plan with him, which was later tweeted out by JJ.
Hashtag work the plan. Yep.
Hashtag work the plan. I don't know what that looks like, because it's like, okay, well, our kicker practiced today, but he didn't kick at all. Or, our wide receiver practiced today, but he didn't run routes or catch the football at all. As these dogs kind of start to fight behind me. Fascinating. They're fighting more than Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy will, though, because J.J.'s not going to be able to throw. And I think this is where Cade kind of has the opportunity to grab this battle by the horns. They need him to be better. They need whoever starts at quarterback to be better next year. So the fact that J.J.'s going to not really be there, and I wouldn't expect him to throw the rest of the spring. But, we'll see what happens. I like Cade's confidence. They're going to need him to be more than he was, and that can't be ruled out. But if he just kind of stays the player he is, then I think that JJ will come into fall camp and still make the push there, and he'll go from there.
Yeah, completely agree. Thinking about Harbaugh, he talked for a while. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood. He was asked about all sorts of things, Vikings, and he kind of answered those in the way you expected him to. Talked about he wants to be at Michigan, all of that. Players, Mike Sainer still was out there talking, and he was talk about his switch to defensive back from wide receiver. He took reps at both, and he has been taking reps at both throughout spring so far. So could be a two-way player. Harbaugh said even a three-way player, because Sainer still, of course, plays on special teams as well. Mozzie Smith would not say that he's an emerging leader, because he says he has to prove it. And anyone that's going to be a leader on the team has to prove it. And I love when Mozzie talks. I feel like he's kind of philosophical and is a thinker, and obviously that helps him on the field as well. But any other takeaways from, I guess, what we got this week? I know next week we're going to get to talk to Jesse Minter, the new defensive coordinator, and Grant Newsome, who was promoted to tight ends coach, and then I think some players after practices as well. But anything else you took away from what was Michigan's second week of spring ball?
No major takeaways. I think it was a confirmation of what I would think before, in terms of Harbaugh was going to come back and act like the mayor of Ann Arbor again. He's cracking jokes. He would have kissed and signed babies if they were there. As loose and as excited as I think we've really ever seen him. So, and typically, like, this is year 8 of him, which it's crazy how time flies. But, typically when we talk to Jim and he has that type of candor and attitude about him, I think it means that he's pretty confident he has a very good football team. And I think that is the case. They're not without their questions that need to be answered. I mean, that ground has been well plowed by us, and we won't even have answers for them coming out of spring football here. But, I just think the vibe is as good as it can be right now, given what the month of January into February was. There's no doubt, and you talk to people in recruiting, in the building, there was some momentum lost there. I don't think any objective person can sit here and argue that there wasn't, but everyone's back on the same page. The staff is ironed out. The support people are ironed out. The team is practicing and getting some good work in, it sounds like. So, right now you're building the callus and building the foundation of what this year will ultimately be. And, we're hearing good things right now. So that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And Jim Harbaugh said the state of the program is, quote, scary good. And that the law of averages will catch up to you at some point, but that you'd rather be in the spot that they're in, where the law of averages is chasing you, than not in that spot. So he does feel good about it, his team, it seems like at this point. And I got that same vibe from him as well. And it was interesting. Yeah, man, he was milling around a little bit after the press conference. He looked like he felt pretty good about things and was happy to be back from all accounts. So we will continue to cover that spring football as it goes through the April 2 spring game as well. Can't wait for that. And you can join us at thewolverine.com for that coverage, for all of Michigan basketball coverage in the postseason. It looks like for now it's going to continue on, but stay tuned for updates on that as well throughout the weekend and beyond at thewolverine.com. Our $1 deal is still live. $1 gets you an entire year of premium access, so join us over there right now, and we'll see you over there.